All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. And thank you very much for your patience this morning. My name is Mark Hancock, and I'm the National President of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. I'm here with our National Secretary Treasurer, Candice Rennick, Fred Hahn, the Ontario Division President, and many other CUPE leaders from all across the country. To start with, you can see there's a big crowd of folks up here with me, and I'd like to introduce a few of my friends from the labor movement who have joined me today. We have leadership from the Canadian Labour Congress, the Ontario Federation of Labour, ATU Canada, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, the Ontario Secondary Schools Teacher Federation, the AEFO, United Steelworkers, UFCW, Unifor, the Ontario Building Trades, the United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, the Sheet Metal Workers, Unite Here, IATSE, the National Union of Public and General Employees, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, the Ontario Nurses Association, SEIU Healthcare, the Canadian Office and Professional Employees Union, the Society of United Professionals, the Toronto and York Regional Labour Council, and my friends, today, together, we represent millions of private and public sector workers all across the country. This is an unprecedented gathering of labor leaders because the attack against worker rights that we've seen from this government, the attack on the rights of all Canadians, which has been unprecedented. Bill 28 was a direct threat to workers' rights and to the charter rights of all Canadians. It invoked the notwithstanding clause to undermine some of our most fundamental rights. That regressive attack on workers united the labor movement like never before. I am so proud of CUPE's frontline education workers, 70% of whom are women, and that they stood firm. They went out on a political protest. They brought their message and their anger to more than 100 sites across this province. They took on the Ford government, and the government blinked. This morning, Doug Ford announced that he would rescind Bill 28. I know there might be a little bit of doubt about that, but we have it confirmed. He will rescind Bill 28. And that's a credit to the power of our members and workers and organized labor here in Ontario and all across Canada. We've demonstrated the power of public sector and private sector solidarity, and we've shown that when our rights are under attack, our movement is strong and that we will stand up for each other. I'm so grateful for the incredible support and solidarity of our members all across this country. We've been receiving messages all week. But let's be clear, we're not done yet. There are 55,000 education workers here in Ontario who still need a fair deal that helps them make ends meet. And we are going to stand with them until they get a deal that works for them and their families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, and I don't have an exciting costume for you today, but here I am. I want to thank every single labor leader who is here today, but most importantly, the labor leaders who are not here with us today, those workers who are currently on the demonstration lines. Education workers, my colleagues, are so very grateful for the solidarity and support everyone has shown. Our team never left the table. Our goal has been, and it remains, to get a fair deal that respects workers, students, and families. We listened to the Premier's announcement today, and like many of you, we were very confused. A lot confused, and Colin, shout out to the questions, because the delay, and I want to thank you all for your patience, was to receive in writing the Premier's intent. We are no longer in a world that we can go without having things in writing. We have received and can confirm that the Premier will introduce and support legislation that will repeal Bill 28 in its entirety. And this bill will be repealed in a manner that ensures that the legislation will be deemed that it was never a law in Ontario in the first place. As a gesture of good faith to this announcement, CUPE OSPCU will be collapsing our protest sites starting tomorrow. We hope that this gesture is met with the same good faith by this government in a new proposal at the bargaining table as soon as possible. And I will be clear, we're here waiting right now. The time is ticking. Let's not forget why this all started. This started because the Ford government didn't want to pay workers, the lowest paid education workers in this province, a living wage. This started because we know the reality in our schools. They're anything but normal and stable due to constant underfunding and lack of investments in the direct services students need to be safe and successful. This started because education workers have been overlooked, underappreciated, and legislated into poverty. This started because coworkers, the vast majority of whom are women, we realized our power and we decided to stand up and fight back. These workers, these custodians, early childhood educators, EAs, clerical workers, lunchroom supervisors, tradespeople, maintenance, and so many more, deserve a deal that has been freely negotiated, that keeps them out of poverty and allows them to meet the needs of their students. It's the work of my friends and colleagues that repealed this bill, and it is unprecedented. The organization of members moved the government to this place, and the organization and mobilization of members will ensure a real deal is achieved at the table, now that this draconian legislation has been removed. And I want to take a moment to speak directly to Ontario education workers, my co-workers and our members. We have our bargaining rights back. And I am as committed as I've ever been to getting a deal that works for each and every one of you. You led this movement that brought labor unions together with parents and concerned Canadians everywhere. You led this movement that showed the people of Ontario that you can stand up to a bully, look them in the eye, and say, hell no, not today. And I want to say I am so very proud of every single one of you. And we're going to be going back to that bargaining table to continue the fight. Thank you.
My name is Bea Bruske, and I'm the president of the Canadian Labour Congress. The Canadian Labour Congress brings together over 3 million workers in private and public sector areas right across this country. We represent those folks who keep our economy going day in and day out. We play a critical role in Canada's economy. We are the unionized workers who are keeping this country running. Last week, Premier Ford made a very dangerous decision. He rammed through a law that would have grossly rammed through an unfair collective agreement on the lowest paid education workers in this province. He also wanted to strip away legal protections that Canadian workers have had for many, many decades. The right to strike is an absolutely essential part of free and fair collective bargaining. And under no circumstances will Canada's unions allow any premier to take that right away. Premier Ford did this when he knew that our economy is in peril. He did this when he knew that schools, children, parents, grandparents, and employers would be scrambling by trying to implement this kind of a bill. He knew that every single workplace would be impacted at a time when our economy and the people of this province cannot withstand another blow. I'm glad that Premier Ford made the right decision this morning and walked back this dangerous and reckless legislation. But now that he's put his promise in writing, I'm asking him to put his money where his mouth is and actually get to the bargaining table and negotiate a fair deal. Let's be clear, Premier Ford grossly overreached, and the support from the workers, from the very workers that CUPE represents in this game, those 55,000 courageous workers who stood up and said, no way, not today, was matched by the thousands and millions of workers across this country coming together and saying, hell no, not going to happen today. And we appreciate that now is the time to get back to that bargaining table, and let there be no mistake. Canada's unions are ready to come back and rally once again and do whatever it takes to get this done.
Hi, my name is Karen Brown. I'm president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario. On behalf of ETFO and the 83,000 members we represent, I'd like to thank CUPE National for inviting me here to be with you all today. We stand together, united in solidarity, and fueled by the collective power of our members, the workers of Ontario. Let there be no doubt that we will not stand by and watch this government strip away our constitutionally protected rights because they want to avoid the inconvenience of negotiations. Never, not here, not in Ontario. We will not stand by and let that happen. The draconian legislation the Ford government passed to impose collective agreements on CUPE and remove their charter rights to free and fair collective bargaining and to strike was an unprecedented attack on collective bargaining rights, the likes of which we've never seen in the Canadian history. Rest assured, we, our members, my colleagues, the people of Ontario, we will hold Premier Ford to his word to rescind Bill 28. We stand in steadfast solidarity with CUPE. You can count on us. You can count on ETFO. Solidarity.
Well, this is as serious as it gets. I'm Lana Payne, and I'm the national president of Unifor. We represent 315,000 workers across this country, most of whom work in the private sector. First, let me start by congratulating CUPE education workers today for their heart, for their courage, and their resolve. They're the reason we're all here. And to Laura Walton for her fierce and relentless leadership. To be very clear, the bargaining table is the only place where this will be settled. And the priority now is to get these workers a fair and negotiated collective agreement. Half of Unifor's members live and work here in Ontario. Bill 28, as you've already heard, represents an outrageous and unprecedented attack on workers' rights and trade union freedoms. And as a labor movement, we were prepared to respond with an unprecedented response. Because if fundamental rights can be taken away from public sector workers without recourse, no one's rights are safe. There is no question that this same tactic could have been used here again in Ontario and in other provinces. You can be sure that other Conservative premiers were watching this very closely. Workers made it clear that they will not tolerate the weaponizing of the notwithstanding clause to strip away our charter rights. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Unifor members were and are prepared to vigorously oppose this law. Last evening, our National Executive Board voted unanimously to take whatever action was needed to defeat Bill 28. And I'm very proud of their solidarity with their sisters and brothers, education workers, CUPE members. We know the responsibility we have as union leaders and as trade unionists to protect the rights of today's workers and the workers of tomorrow. I'm pleased to see that the Premier has made this commitment to revoke the legislation. The next step is for that to happen, and then a fair collective agreement for CUPE members. To CUPE members, all workers on demonstration lines today, Unifor will be with you every single step of the way until you win. Solidarity.
Hello, everyone. I'm JP Hornick, President of OPSU-CEFPO, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union and the largest public service union in Ontario. And while I'm pleased to hear the promise from the Ford government that Bill 28 is being repealed, our 180,000 members of OPSU are not standing down. We are standing by. We will make sure that that promise is made to stick. OPSU-SEFPO members are in this fight with the CUPE education workers, with all workers, until a fair deal is reached for CUPE workers, for our own education workers, for teachers, and for workers across this province, including our comrades in ATU. This is exactly the moment that we are being called upon to stand up for each other, with each other, to speak out, to not settle down, to stand for what's right, and to consciously and deliberately walk our solidarity as you are seeing here today. I want to take a moment to just note the historical importance of where we are. When you have the largest private sector union in Canada standing with the largest public sector unions in Ontario and saying we will fight together for all workers, the power of this cannot be overstated. Bill 28 was a direct attack on unions. A union exists to harness the collective energy and power of workers so that they can stand together to better their working conditions. But it was also an attack on the foundations of democracy, the freedom of association and the freedom of expression. All Ontarians should be terrified of this abuse of our charter rights. And all Ontarians know that they should be joining Labour in this moment to hold the Ford government accountable. This government will continue to try and divide and conquer us, as we saw in their press conference today. As education workers, as parents, as private versus public sector, as environmentalists, as poverty activists, at all of the people that are being targeted in this legislation are the ones who are the majority. We are where the power of this province resides. So while first they are coming for education workers, we need to let them know, and we need to stand up and stand here together for as long as this fight takes to get them a fair and freely bargained deal, that when you come for one of us, you come for all of us. The Ford government may not know what they started, but I know that as trade unionists, we will finish it. And I know that workers, united, will shut this province down whenever we need to.
Sure.
For journalists in the room, we have 2 microphones. Please line up at the mics.
It's going to be for you.
Over to you. Hi.
Yeah.
Our mic isn't on.
Broadcast voice, Caroline. Belt it out.
I just got mine back, Carolyn. You have to go from the diaphragm, I've been told.
Is this one working? I think this one's working.
Is it? Okay. Thanks, Ken. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, when you said you were collapsing picket lines tomorrow, does that mean your members are returning back to school?
Yes, we will be at work tomorrow morning.
And if the government repeals this legislation as they promised you, you will be in a legal strike position. So do you have a timeline to reach a negotiated deal?
Well, I think everyone agrees here, sooner is better than later. You know, I would like to see this government, if they're serious, if this is not more than just a public display, they need to be directing their team to be at the table. We're here, we're ready to go. I'm actually bringing in my team from all over Ontario. I said, be here, we're going to go. We're going to go as soon as we possibly can. We need to be at the bargaining table. We've said this all the way along. I even offered to buy Doug dinner. I'm ready, let's go.
Hi, Rob Ferguson, Toronto Star. Did the Premier indicate when he is going to repeal this legislation? Is he going to recall the legislature tomorrow? And why do you believe something in writing on this before it happens?
Well, we asked for something in writing because we weren't sure what the hell he said by the end of the conference. And I noticed out there on Twitter world and very other social medias that not a lot of people were really sure what he actually was committing to repeal. My understanding is that he has talked to the NDP, and they've committed to bringing their folks back to the legislature, so we're hopeful very soon. I don't have a real time frame.
Okay, and you know, I've heard the remarks here from all the union leaders and what JP was just saying about shut the province down. So what was in the works? I mean, was it going to be, was it going to be more? Was it going to be more than the days of protest? Can you be more specific? Because, I mean, was there going to be a general strike? What was the plan?
When I retire, I'm going to write a book. You can buy it. I think part of it is nobody really knew. That was the beauty of what's happened over the last number of days leading into the legislation being enacted, that this grew a movement of its own in some ways. And you heard very clearly from private sector unions and public sector unions that everybody was very serious on that. And what that looked like on Saturday at the rally and on Monday, I think we had a pretty good idea, but beyond that, I have no idea. This has got legs of its own. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Laura. Good morning, or good afternoon now, I guess. And I have two questions for you. But before I ask my questions, can you clarify, so is it school resuming tomorrow now that the protests are coming down?
Well, the union doesn't direct the school board, so I'm assuming that the school boards will be coming together and they will be making announcements. But my understanding is that our members will be at work tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And my two questions. Can you clarify this whole 12% over 4 years, 50% compensation, 100 plus sick days? Because I think it has a tendency to confuse a lot of people, and I'm not sure what the purpose is.
You don't say.
Can you confirm that, or maybe explain
Yeah, I would
that?
love to confirm it, and I can actually provide a source of where all this information is. Folks can go onto our website at ospcu.ca. All of the proposals are there. Minister Lecce has a really interesting way of spinning things in order to make it seem more palatable. And so, you know, there is this, you know, it felt like every time he got to a mic, there was like a magic 8-ball that he shook, and that was the number he came out with. But what we were asking for and what we continue to be asking for is a flat rate increase. We have never asked for a percentage, because percentage increases further the disparity between low-wage earners and high-wage earners, which just further drives inequity in our province. It needs to stop. So we are going to be back at the table asking for our flat rate wage increase yet again. There will not be a percentage. And my understanding, and I defer, my researcher's not here, a lot of this was him taking what we were asking for and applying it to other groups down the line. Prep time already exists for teachers. You don't actually need to increase it in order for someone else to have it. So I think there was a lot of creative math, which maybe is a little bit scary when you consider this is the government that wants to change the math curriculum.
So this is not my follow-up, but just to clarify, so those numbers were inaccurate?
Yes.
Okay. You and I had a conversation, I'm sure you won't mind me sharing this conversation, that you and I had in the parking lot of Queen's Park on, I think it was Wednesday afternoon. And I was struck by the look of bewilderment, I don't want to say sadness, disappointment, because I just left a press conference, you had spoken, and then the Minister of Education spoke after you, and following one of my questions, he said, that's it, Wednesday, we're done, and as of Friday, they're coming into the legislature Thursday morning at 5 a.m. to push ahead this notwithstanding clause. I spoke with you in the parking lot, and you said, hey, we've got this other proposal that we are coming back to the table with on Thursday. And when I told you what I had just learned, I won't forget that look on your face. So Did you guys walk away from the table like the Premier said today, or what's going on there?
No, we have never left the table. As a matter of fact, what this government did was bring us in and say, if you don't take this, then we're going to legislate you. And not only are we going to legislate you, we're going to rip away all of your rights. And interestingly enough, I did an interview this weekend where it was confirmed that this legislation was written far before last Sunday. As a matter of fact, this legislation has been in the works as he tried to work his way through to make sure that the lowest paid education workers were kept in poverty and that he could have schools open. That's not how you do good faith bargaining. And I hope before they come back to the table, hopefully tonight, they reconsider their tactics. Let's come in and let's do this properly. I have negotiated several contracts. Most people in this room have negotiated several contracts. We have never, ever needed to use a sledgehammer to put in a pushpin.
So I'm done my time, but just to be clear, you didn't walk away from the negotiating table?
Never.
Why was that said? I know you're not clairvoyant, but why would that
I
be said?
bet you made a really good soundbite in somebody's article.
Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, Laura.
Hey.
Colin DeMello from Global. So what happens now at the negotiating table if you don't come to terms on a new contract? You had your leverage. You've used your leverage. I don't know if you're going to use that leverage again, seeing as how quickly this escalated. So if you can't come to a new understanding with the government, what happens?
So with the repeal of Bill 28, education workers' bargaining rights are intact again. We have not used our leverage. Our leverage isn't a one and done. Worker power remains and it builds every single day. And so we need to be clear to this government, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. And what you don't see here are the thousands, tens of thousands of parents, of community members who are going to be holding this government accountable as well. We haven't spent our leverage. Our leverage is just getting started. Our commitment to the people of Ontario, to the parents, to the kids, is we are going back to the table with open minds, open hearts, and we're ready to negotiate. And we call on the government to do the exact same.
Right. So the Premier today was asked, would you reintroduce the notwithstanding clause? And he wouldn't answer. So I'll ask you something similar. Are you willing to go on strike or issue a notice of a strike again if the talks don't move forward in the direction that you would like to go?
Yes, because that is the right of all workers in negotiation and in free collective bargaining.
Hi there, Alan Hale from Queen's Park today. I didn't quite catch all of the unions that are here today, but I was wondering if there is a representative here from any of the unions that endorsed the PCs during the last election, and if they would like to address that decision and what their relationship with the government will be going forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's here right now and who's not but I wouldn't put those folks in that type of position. This is about building solidarity, not about ripping the movement apart. So.
Should any union be having a close relationship or be endorsing the PCs after what they've done?
You know what I would answer to that, Alan, is people make choices all the time. But what really matters is when you need your family, which this is our family, regardless of what anyone has done in the past, we all know at the heart of it, protecting workers' rights will always come first. And I think you've seen that here.
Hey, Laura, I'm Charlie Pinkerton from Queen's Park Briefing. Something still isn't clear to me. So given this arrangement with the government, will CUPE workers still be in a legal position to strike immediately if things don't go as hoped, or are we sort of resetting the 17-day time frame?
So in accordance to the School Board Collective Bargaining Act, we are still in a legal position to strike. We would have to serve a 5-day notice. That is what's required of us. So no, we don't have to reset the clocks. But we're going into this not with our eyes on that, but on our eyes on getting a real deal.
And obviously things negotiating-wise didn't exactly go so well over the last however many months. You know, what are kind of the lines in the sand for your negotiating team now to, again, prevent everything from falling apart once again?
I think the line's in the sand for workers. It's not about a negotiation team, it's about workers. And the line in the sand is that these workers need to be able to afford to go to work. They need to be able to keep a roof over their head. They need to be able to put food on their table. But they also need to ensure that the services that they proudly provide to the students of Ontario are in place. And right now, they are not in place. Contrary to what everyone is saying, we do not have enough people in place. We do not have enough folks even to take the jobs. There is a recruitment and retention issue, and we need to address that now. And the way that that gets addressed is by investments and in funding and making sure there's a real wage on the table for workers.
Hi there, Etienne Lajoie from Le Devoir. I'm just wondering, does this sort of taint the relationship between unions and the PCs sort of going forward over the next, 3 years of this PC mandate, essentially?
Well, I think as far as relationships go, I mean, we all bicker, right? But I think what we need to remember, not just as unions, but as people, elections are one day. Your term is for 4 years, and the people of Ontario have a responsibility to hold whatever elected government comes into place accountable for their actions.
And what's your message to other education sector unions who are going to negotiate a contract in the coming days or weeks?
Listen to your workers. The worker power is there. And education workers in CUPE, we are going to be right there beside you, whatever you need. Every single one of these unions, whatever you need, we're there. Because I think we've proven we are so much stronger together than we are divided.
Hi there, it's Lorenda Redicop from CBC. Do you have a sense of what this means for that Ontario Labour Relations Board decision that's supposedly coming? I'm not sure if your lawyers have been in touch with them.
He says we won, and I think we did. You know, I didn't even watch it. And a lot of people are like, what? I love Stephen Barrett, but when you know that you're in hands of Stephen Barrett, you don't need to watch because you have faith in the people who are fighting for you. And that's what the members had. They had faith in the people up here, out there, who are fighting for them every single day. We won. The bill is gone. We won.
Yeah!
And I know you didn't want anyone from one of the private sector unions that supported the PCs during the election campaign to come up and speak, but I'm wondering if, because there were a lot of names of unions that were rattled off there at the beginning, how many are from private sector unions here? If you could just maybe raise your hands.
There's a couple behind there, there's a few over here.
Can we get a show of hands of how many are from private sector unions that did support the government?
Come on, Lorena, let's be honest.
I wonder.
I'm going to say this. Yeah, it is a fair question. And listen, I'm going to say this. I understand that, you know, and I've talked about this with other people. Our natural instinct is to say, well, you didn't agree with me before. My gut instinct is, it doesn't matter what you did before. When I called you because I needed you, you were there for me. And that's all that matters to me. We are going to disagree. We're going to disagree in the future. The union is like, the union movement, the labor movement, just so y'all know, is like a big family. You know, some days we agree, some days we disagree. But at the end of the day, we know that we're stronger together, and that's why we're all here together.
I wonder then if one of you could speak to, I mean, were you guys in touch with the private sector unions, trying to get them to use their connections that they built?
Actually, a lot of the private sector unions called us, including those that had relationships with Ford and those that didn't. So there was a lot of conversations. I talked with a number of national leaders. some of the provincial leaders. I know my friend Bea Bruske from the Canadian Labour Congress had a lot of conversations, and the other private sector folks up here had a lot of conversations. But it didn't take any arm twisting. All union leaders knew what he was doing was wrong, that Bill 28 was wrong, and it needed to go. And they all came together to support us in that. So we couldn't be more grateful.
Hear, hear.
Laura, can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Let's just make it like a conversation. Forget everybody else is here.
Forget the hundreds. Got it, Steve. I'm on it.
And I say that because, again, you and I spoke about 2/3 of your workers, low-paid workers, are women.
Yep.
And based on my past experience in law enforcement, and I think everybody knows this, that when it comes to not only poverty, but relationships where there may be violence, domestic violence of any sort, oftentimes a lack of finances keeps that person in that relationship. Because never have I heard somebody say to me, I stayed with that man or woman because I love them. What they say is, I stayed with that person because I needed to financially. So do you see this, I don't want to say as a win, but as a win in that sense where you may be, because of the work that you've collectively done, provided wings to those people that are in those relationships to be able to get the heck out?
Absolutely. This past weekend, I lost my voice. And I was talking to my mom, who told me I had to go to rest my voice. And she said, don't worry, Laura, you may have lost your voice, but tens of thousands of other women have found theirs. And it hit me. That's what's happened here. That's what's happening as we speak, right? This is just one piece in the puzzle. But people across Ontario, people across Canada, heck, we had somebody call us from the UK. People everywhere are starting to realize that they can have a voice, and they can use that voice collectively to push back to ensure that we live in a world that respects workers, that respects people, that respects kids, and we don't have to put up with what we've been seeing for decades.
And I'll sit down after this, I promise. Collectively then, what does that say about the power of the people, genders included? What does it say when the people get together and say no?
Well, we have a saying, the people united will never be defeated. Thank you, everyone. Take care.